I'm a German historian living in Cambridge. My family history is complicated. My paternal grandmother, Alice Urbach, is at the center of it. Just like the children's book heroine Alice in Wonderland, she experienced many journeys into the absurd. As author of a cookbook and innovator in Viennese catering, as a servant in an English castle with an eccentric owner, as matron of a refugee home for 24 Jewish children, and as a cook on PBS in the United States. The whole story began when I was looking for a recipe in her cookbook. At home, we had two versions of her cookbook. One edition with Alice as the author from 1936. And one from 1938 with the author's name given as Rudolf Rösch. I have no idea who this Rösch was and why there are these two editions. Both were released by the same publisher. It is a riddle that I finally want to solve. My American cousin Katrina may be able to help. Hi, Katrina. Great to see you.
Hi, Karina. What a surprise. How are you?
Yeah, well, I have a problem on the question. We have these two cookbooks. We have Alice's cookbook, and then we have this guy called Rudolf Rösch. And I'm a bit confused now. Do you know what happened to Alice's cookbook? Do you have any material? I'm sorry to be the greedy historian, but do you have any, letters, memoirs, because I would really like to research this.
I have a box that says Granny on it that I haven't looked at for years. I'm trying to think what was in there. All sorts of postcards and photos and letters. Some of them are in German. I wasn't able to read them.
Could you mail them to me? That would be
Sure.
great. Could you mail them to Cambridge?
Course.
That would be
Course.
excellent. Thank you so much, Katrina. It was great talking. Thanks a lot. Katrina grew up in the US, where Alice lived. She knew our grandmother better than anyone. Katrina sent me wonderful things. Cassette recordings of Alice's voice, lots of old letters, postcards from all over the world, and even an autobiography. I'm off to Austria to find out more about my grandmother and what happened to her cookbook. Alice was born in Vienna, a city I hardly know. When she was born here in 1886, Austria-Hungary was still ruled by Emperor Franz Joseph. Vienna's architects, its painters, musicians and writers were world famous. Some of them lived in the elegant villa suburb of Döbling, where Alice also grew up. She had 6 siblings. She was among the 3 youngest with her brother Felix and sister Helene. Their father, Sigmund Meyer, had made a fortune with an international textile company. As her siblings worked to their father's high educational standards, Alice's favorite place became the kitchen. She writes about it in her memoirs.
My father, in addition to his high intellectual standards, was a great gourmet. I was barely old enough to reach the top of the kitchen table when I wanted to learn how to cook, so that I could win a smile from his stern face.
Austrian patisserie is world famous. Alice wants to play in this league. She takes a course with a famous Viennese chef.
I was interested in gastronomy, but how could a girl from a nice family run a tea room or coffee shop or anything like that? I would have liked to have been a real apprentice in one of the good confectionaries of which Vienna is famously rich. No girls were admitted to that profession.
While her sister Helene is allowed to continue her studies, Alice is only a candidate for marriage. We don't have a single photo of her husband Max in the family. But I hope to find documents about her marriage and other important information in the archives of the Vienna Jewish community.
Oh, das ist natürlich fantastisch, dass Sie mir das zeigen können. Wunderbar. Und wo ist Alice?
Der erste Eintrag ist hier, ist Alice.
Ja.
Genau. Geboren 5. Februar 1886. Und das sind die Angaben von den Eltern. Vater, Mutter Pauline, geborene Gutmann. So, hier haben wir das Trauungsbuch der Kultusgemeinde Währing. Das ist Dr. Maximilian Urbach, die Trauung mit Alice Meyer.
Ah ja, das ist etwas zittrig. Wahrscheinlich war sie sehr nervös. Ich würde denken, wer ist bei seiner Hochzeit nicht nervös. Soweit ich weiß, war das jetzt keine so erfolgreiche Ehe. Also er war Arzt zwar, aber er hat auch sehr viel ihres Vermögens verspielt. Er hatte anscheinend eine Spielleidenschaft. Das einzig Gute an dieser Ehe war, dass da 2 Söhne daraus entstanden und darüber war sie sehr glücklich. Das war das Beste an der Geschichte. Also das ist 1913 mein Vater Otto und dann 1917 Karl.
Der Karl. Ich sehe gerade, da ist nur 44 Jahre alt geworden, der Max Urbach.
Und der ist an, was heißt das,
Gehirngeschwulst.
Ja.
Geschwulst, ja. Das kann natürlich
alles Mögliche
sein, genau, richtig.
Yeah.
After the death of her husband, Alice has to support their 2 sons, Otto and Karl, on her own. 5 years after the First World War, the food situation has finally improved. Alice surprises everyone and sets up a cooking school, trying unusual marketing strategies. She writes about it in her memoirs.
I would simply stand outside the most elegant delicatessens in Vienna, which displayed culinary masterpieces in their windows. Women of all ages stood admiring these glittering things. They didn't have the slightest idea how such miracles could be created. As soon as I realized that a woman really was interested, I handed her my business card. And then she was bound to come to my cookery course. And she didn't come on her own, no. She brought her sisters, friends, mother, and mother-in-law.
Vienna, 1st District. Alice's sister Helene, who has become a lawyer, lives in this beautiful area. In her apartment, Alice often does the catering for Helene's dinner parties. Hi, Katrina. Hi, I've made it to Vienna.
Oh, hi, it's so good to see you.
Guess which hotel I booked?
The Saka.
Ah, that would be great. No. But it's a really important hotel because this is the apartment where Alice's sister Helene lived. So the old apartment is now part of a hotel.
Oh, I wish I could be there with you.
And I've done some research, so I found out a few things about Alice's career in the 1920s.
How did she manage to have a career in the Depression after World War I?
Alice was very entrepreneurial, you know, she was super clever. I found a few ads that she ran in the newspapers.
I remember she told me that she had famous students at her school.
That's right. Yeah. So she had, for example, she had members of the nobility, of the Austrian nobility, even a man, which was unusual, a prince, you know, who needed it for his world tour because he thought in the jungle he might need help for cooking, and a theater star. And so, yeah, she had stars and lesser-known people. It was a really great mix of people, I think. Alice's cooking school is going well. She organizes splendid cooking art shows with her students, which even receive notice in the newspapers. She gives lectures all over Vienna about the girl at the stove or cooking for the working woman. She now has no financial worries and can pay for her son's education. My father Otto goes to the US as an exchange student and builds up his college's ski team there. His younger brother Karl studies medicine in Vienna. In 1935, Alice publishes a large recipe and housekeeping book entitled So kocht man in Wien. That's how we cook in Vienna. It contains everything she has learned since she was 5 years old. It becomes a bestseller. Every Viennese housewife has it on her shelf.
This is her bestseller, and I found a few reviews. So I read one to you. It says, So kocht man in Wien.
Alice Urbach, die sich des besten kulinarischen Ruhmes und Rufes erfreut, hat jetzt ein bildschönes Kochbuch herausgegeben. Vom einfachsten bis zur subtilsten Delikatesse, von der Alltagsspeise, die ihren besonderen Geschmack durch die sorgliche Zubereitung erhält, bis zum raffiniertesten Gericht, dessen Herstellung sonst Geheimnis der Chefköche ist. Alles findet man hier.
How you found all those articles and reviews from so long ago, that's just amazing. It's wonderful.
Yeah, she got lots of excellent reviews for that cookbook. And of course, yeah, that's what I'm after now. We have to find out why she lost it and how all this happened.
In March 1938, everything changes for the family. Adolf Hitler annexes Austria to Germany. Katrina's package also contained cassette recordings of Alice reminiscing. At one point, she talks about a day that changed her life.
Ich habe ein Film gesehen. Ich war in einer Privatwohnung in der Meyer-Hilfer-Straße. Ich habe dort eine Kochstunde gegeben, die von der Westbahn eingezogen ist, wie ein Gladiator stehend auf dem Hauptwerk. Im März. März 1938.
The first wave of arrests begins. Austrian Jews are now fair game. They are humiliated in public. Jewish property is confiscated by the Nazis. Paintings by Klimt and Kandinsky, villas and companies. But not only wealthy Jews lose everything. The average Jewish family lives in an ordinary apartment. And even these apartments are looted now. The radios, the typewriters, the silver cutlery. Alice's greatest possession are her books. She's proud to be an author. And she's certain that this can't be taken away from her. But that is exactly what seems to have happened here. Did the Nazis perhaps steal not only objects, but also intellectual property? What about Alice's publisher? How did he behave in 1938? The Ernst Reinhardt publishing house still exists. I write to them and ask for access to their archive. The management assistant answers me by email.
Es tut mir leid, aber wir haben kein Archiv mehr über Alice Urbach. Es gibt durch all die Wirren überhaupt nur noch wenig Unterlagen über die alten Zeiten. Der Verlag wurde ja schon 1899 gegründet und da ist leider total viel verloren gegangen.
But this cannot be true. Alice's publisher Hermann Jung wrote a book about the history of his publishing house in 1974. It is based on extensive archival material from the 1930s and 1940s. I'm going to Munich. The publishing house is in the elegant district of Nymphenburg. They don't want to help me. But I still hope to find out how the publisher behaved during the Nazi era. The Bavarian Economic Archives hold the records of many companies. Here I meet the historian Richard Winkler. He's an expert on how companies positioned themselves during the Nazi era. Whether they eagerly did the regime's bidding, merely towed the line, or otherwise maneuvered their way through.
Ich glaube, wir haben was gefunden.
Oh, das wäre natürlich fantastisch.
Schauen
Jetzt
wir
bin ich
mal.
gespannt.
Der Alleininhaber Hermann Jung, Verlagsbuchhändler in München, ist nach unseren Erkundigungen schweizerischer Staatsangehöriger, artverwandten Blutes. Jüdisches Kapital ist nach uns gemachten Angaben bei der Firma Ernst Reinhardt München nicht beteiligt.
das
ist interessant. Ja?
Das passt wirklich sehr gut, weil 1938, das ist das Jahr, in dem Hermann Jung seinen Verlag dem Naziregime vollkommen anpasst. Also ich habe auch ein Bild von ihm hier. Schauen Sie, er ist ein sehr strenger Schweizer Pastorentyp, so ein bisschen, ja. Aber er muss natürlich jetzt diesen Verlag anpassen, weil sein Onkel ihm sehr viele jüdische und sozialistische Autoren hinterlassen hat.
In the meantime, Alice has written 2 more cookbooks for the Reinhardt Publishing House, which have not yet been printed. In September 1938, she suddenly receives a letter from Hermann Jung. She's asked to sign a declaration. Jung suggests that she give up her rights for all 3 cookbooks. It is unclear why Alice signed this declaration, but it is clear that it was sent to her after Austria had been annexed by the Nazis. Nowadays, such contracts, signed under duress, are no longer considered legal. I'm back in Vienna and take another look at the company's Jubilee publication from 1974. In it, Jung describes:
Nach dem Anschluss Österreichs sah ich mich genötigt, für das Kochbuch einen neuen Verfasser zu suchen. Da Alice Urbach Jüdin war und das Kochbuch sonst nicht mehr hätte vertrieben werden können. Ich fand ihn in Rudolf Rösch.
Later, Alice writes about this.
The publisher sold this book, my book, copied word for word, with just another author's name.
According to the declaration Alice signed under duress in 1938, he was allowed to do that. But Jung claims that Rudolf Rösch rewrote the book completely. Is that true? I go and see the cookbook historian Walter Schübler. We have an appointment in Goldeckgasse, exactly where Alice used to have her cooking school. These photos were taken here in 1935. Today, in the same house, there's a new cooking school. The owner knew nothing of his predecessor. It's a real coincidence. Walter Schübler has forensically compared the 2 cookbooks.
Der Verlag sagt, dass sie alles geändert haben. Das sagt der Verleger und Rösch hätte ein neues Kochbuch geschrieben. Stimmt das oder was ist denn hier los?
Das stimmt sicher nicht. Ich habe die beiden Bücher nebeneinander gelegt und habe sie Seite für Seite verglichen. Das ist ganz eindeutig ein Plagiat. Das heißt, er kopiert 1:1 Passagen aus Alice Urbachs Buch. Er wird es beziffern mit 70–75%.
Also können Sie mir jetzt sagen, was da geändert wird genau?
Also Rösch streicht etwa alle Speisen, die in der Bezeichnung jüdisch konnotiert sind. Hier haben wir eins, etwa das Rothschild-Omelett. Hier, die Rezepte sind ja durchgehend nummeriert.
Yeah.
Das ist hier unter 631. Versuchen Sie es zu finden bei ihm. Also bei der Alice Urbach ist es Nummer 631. Also, aber nicht nur dieses Rothschild-Omelett, sondern auch eine Jaffa-Torte. Finden Sie es?
Nein.
Eben, ja.
Nein,
eben, richtig. Also das Vorwort ist wirklich einer der ganz wenigen Teile, die neu getextet wurden. Und wenn man hier so liest, hier und so geht dieses Buch nun hinaus in alle deutschen Gaue und vielleicht noch weiter in die Welt. Also dann hört man ja im Hintergrund fast diesen unsäglichen Refrain und heute gehört uns Deutschland und morgen die ganze Welt. Das heißt, er bringt tatsächlich das ganze Kochbuch auf Linie.
Ich habe nichts über diesen Rösch rausfinden können. Also wer könnte das sein oder ist das ein Phantom? Also das ist meine Vermutung, dass es den nicht gab.
Ich habe einen Rudolf Rösch gefunden in einer Radioprogrammzeitschrift. Okay. Ein Rudolf Rösch trat in einer Hausfrauensendung auf. Der hat dort den kulinarischen Teil bestritten. Ich habe das Wiener Adressverzeichnis über 30 Jahrgänge hinweg durchgeackert. Ich bin nicht fündig geworden. Und wenn der hier in Wien je eine Rolle gespielt hat als Koch, dann müsste er zumindest hier und da aufscheinen. Also ich halte es für möglich, dass Rudolf Rösch ein Deckname ist für ein Redaktionskollektiv. Er bedankt sich ja auch ausdrücklich hier im Vorwort bei 2 Mitarbeiterinnen.
Ja, das hat mich auch gewundert und ich habe mir dann gedacht, liegt das auch daran, weil auf allen den Fotos Frauenhände sind, dass er vielleicht auch kaschieren will, dass da keine Männerhände, das sind ja alles Fotos.
Eben, und wenn man weiß, dass es zumindest auf einen Teil dieser Fotografien die Hände von Alice Urbach sind, ja, die da einen Strudelteig ausziehen oder irgendeine Aspikform befüllen oder Brandteigkrapferl backen, dann wird die ganze Sache sogar etwas spooky. Also da kriegt das was Beklemmendes.
Alice's book was a bestseller until 1938. Brides were given it as a wedding present. Hermann Jung did not want to simply take such a successful book off the market. That would have been a financial loss. So the books by Jewish authors were turned into books by Aryan authors. No historian has systematically studied these thefts of intellectual property. But the medical historian Peter Vosswinkel succeeded in researching a case that gets me further.
Gerade die Verlage standen jetzt vor der Frage, was machen wir mit unseren jüdischen Autoren? Und da gab es so ein paar Musterprozesse, wo dann Urteile gefällt wurden. Es ist den Verlagen nicht zuzumuten, einen jüdischen Autor nun weiter herauszubringen. Und darauf konnten sich dann die anderen Verlage natürlich alle berufen. Und schwuppdiwupp, dann waren die jüdischen Autoren dann weg. Zunächst mal von den Titeln der Zeitschriften oder als die Herausgeber von Büchern und die Autoren. Und erst eigentlich im Krieg selber, nach 39, 40, dann begannen wirklich Verordnungen, wo dann wirklich angeordnet wurde, ab jetzt werden jüdische Autoren nicht mehr zitiert. Das ist ein allmählicher Prozess gewesen, diese Enteignung oder dieser Raubzucht, der zog sich also über mehrere Jahre hin.
As early as May 1933, the Nazis were burning books. Works by authors deemed undesirable were simply destroyed. In doing so, the problem seemed to be solved. At least, that's what we thought until now.
Und Sie haben ja einen Fall recherchiert, der sehr an meinen Fall, Alice, erinnert und der wirklich sehr, sehr beeindruckend ist. Und Sie haben ein tolles Buch darüber geschrieben, über Dr. Josef Löbel. Können Sie mir erklären, was mit ihm passiert ist?
Ja, Josef Löbel war ein Schriftsteller und Arzt, also die neuen Errungenschaften in der Medizin, Hormone zum Beispiel, ein ganz großes Thema. Das hat er nun versucht zu erklären in gut lesbaren Texten. War ein großer Erfolg, die wurden in viele Sprachen übersetzt. Und da ist offenbar dann 1930 der Knauer Verlag an ihn herangetreten, Mensch, wir haben jetzt die Idee, preiswerte Lexika zu machen. Die sind ja berühmt. Der Knauer ist ja hat ein Markenzeichen, das Knauer-Lexikon.
Damit bin ich aufgewachsen. Also ich meine, das gab es bei uns zu Hause. Das ist ein Standardwerk.
Ja. Und es ist aber eben gar nicht bekannt, dass eben das erste Knauer Gesundheitslexikon schon von 1930 ist. 1930 erschien es von Josef Löbel mit dem bezeichnenden Untertitel Ein Handbuch der Medizin, Hygiene, Körperkultur und Schönheitspflege.
Ja, das braucht man.
Das war also damals 1930 der Untertitel. Und dann kann man hier eben sehr schön verfolgen, wie nun die zweite Auflage aus dem Jahr 1940 erschien. Da ist wieder das Knauers Gesundheitslexikon im Haupttitel, aber sehr sprechend, ein Führer für alle durch das Gesamtgebiet der modernen Medizin.
Also vom Handbuch zum Führer.
Handbuch zum Führer. Der Führer muss natürlich auftauchen. Und es ist eben auch diese Schönheitspflege, die ist auch weg. Das kam ihm auch komisch vor. Und das heißt, hier wurde nur das Knauer Lexikon ein zweites Mal herausgegeben. Das ist, ich möchte mal grob sagen, zu 98% identisch mit der ersten Auflage. Aber es wurde natürlich der Zeit angepasst. Und was eben das Schlimme ist, das kennen Sie bei Ihrem Beispiel, der Name Löbel ist nie wieder aufgetaucht.
Und was ist aus dem geworden?
Das war natürlich niederschmetternd, das ist klar, nicht? Wenn man sich des Lebenswerks beraubt sieht. Und er hat sich dann das Leben genommen.
In autumn 1938, Alice and her son Karl are still waiting for an opportunity to leave Austria. Karl explains to his older brother Otto in America how desperate the situation is. He writes,
Man kann nicht nach Ungarn, Schweiz, Tschechoslowakei, Italien, Balkanstaaten, Holland, Belgien, Frankreich. Hier kann man aber auch nicht bleiben.
Britain offers a back door. Jewish refugees are allowed entry if they sign up for domestic service. Alice is lucky. Cooks are urgently needed in England. Alice's first job is in a country house with more than 100 rooms. I set off for Grantham Castle, a 2-hour drive from London. The owner of the country house at the time is the eccentric millionaire Violet van der Els. The historian Julie Gottlieb has done some research on her.
Violet comes from very humble beginnings. She herself was a scullery maid as her first job, and she marries a Jewish gentleman 14 years her senior. But she's actually self-made. It's not through her husband that she gains her wealth. She gains her wealth by developing cosmetic products. Most famous of those are something called Shavex, which was a shaving cream that you could use without a brush. This was her great innovation. Anyway, she was eccentric, and as we've seen, she did give the impression that she thought she had a lot of clout and a lot of influence. She was also an altruist. She was also had very, very strong humanitarian instincts. So it makes sense that she would have reached out to refugees and to, at least on an individual basis, try to help a number of them.
Thousands of former well-to-do men and women of the best society did not see any other means of escape than domestic situations. It was hard for women who never in their lives had to make their own beds, to turn suddenly into maids and scrub bathroom floors. Worse for men with white-collar jobs, lawyers and bank managers, to turn suddenly into valets and butlers.
Could you tell me something more about once war breaks out? What was the situation of domestic servants like Alice?
They became enemy aliens, no longer really refugees. That wasn't a recognized category as such. A number of them, a large number, were interned. And in May 1940, the Aliens Act was passed, which meant that internment became a pretty systematic process. Alice was saved from that. In fact, far more men were interned than women, 23,000 men and only 4,000 women. The vast majority of those who were enemy aliens, of course, were Jews who had fled persecution. So they found themselves in a very, tough bind.
Alice is safe in Grantham Castle. But in Vienna, the situation comes to a head in autumn '38. In the early hours of 10th of November, all the Viennese SS and SA receive instructions to burn synagogues and arrest as many Jews as possible. Alice's son Karl has no idea what lies in wait when he leaves the house that morning. He is immediately caught and beaten. He's taken to the Dachau concentration camp. His brother Otto writes a desperate letter from America to a non-Jewish relative in Vienna.
Ich erhielt heute einen Brief von Kalis Freund Willi, in dem mir mitteilt, dass Kali am 10. dieses Monats spurlos verschwand. Ich bin schrecklich besorgt, was mit Kali los ist, und ich kann mir absolut keinen Grund vorstellen, der zu so etwas führen könnte.
Meanwhile, at Grantham Castle, Alice has to prepare the Christmas menu for Violet van der Els's guests. In her memoirs, she writes,
I told her about a concentration camp called Dachau, where terrible things were happening to my son. She listened and said she would write a letter to Hitler. Looking back, however, I'm convinced that she never wrote this letter. They would have killed Karl immediately.
Alice feels helpless and hopes her eldest son Otto will find a solution. Otto pulls out all the stops. With American affidavits and a visa, Otto manages to get Karl released from Dachau in February 1939. Karl writes to Alice immediately.
Liebe Mutter, ich schreibe dir den ersten Brief, den zu schreiben ich fähig bin. Ich bin gestern früh in Wien angekommen. Ich bin vollkommen gesund. Verzeih, dass ich nicht mehr schreibe, aber ich bin außerstande. Die Veränderung ist zu plötzlich. Ich bin noch zu nervös. Der Schock zittert zu stark in mir nach. Hoffentlich wird das bald besser. Viele, viele Küsse. Kali.
Karl arrives in the Netherlands on the 17th of February 1939. In Rotterdam, he boards a ship of the Holland-America line. His destination is New York. Alice is grateful that her child was saved and now wants to help other children. British and Dutch private individuals have organized the so-called Kindertransport. They make it possible for 10,000 Jewish children from Germany and Austria to enter Great Britain without a visa. In the Lake District, in the idyllic small town of Windermere, Alice and her old friend Paula Sieber take over the running of a children's home where 24 Jewish girls from Austria and Germany find refuge.
Die Kleineren sind in die Schule gegangen, aber ich habe immer ein oder zwei von den großen Mädchen in der Küche gehabt, sodass sie kochen gelernt haben.
Today, the children's hostel is a private home. Joan Karras lives next door. Her late husband rented out the house to the Jewish refugees at that time.
The house is basically the same as it used to be, and of course Trevor has a picture of what it used to look like. And the girls would have no doubt gathered there and read their books and perhaps done their homework up there, really.
Yes.
Yes, and the Mrs. Sieber and Mrs. Urbach used to use that room mainly as their sitting room.
The two women get little rest. Many children have nightmares at first, and Alice and Paula are sometimes up all night. But they get help from neighbors who invite the children to their homes.
Because Alice says in her memoirs that the local people were lovely and that she had this beautiful house and she was so happy that the children had a garden and a stream and she thought they were in paradise, really, so they were terribly thankful for this.
Mrs. Urbach, being such a skilled cook, used to give recipes to my late husband's first wife. She had little babies, and Alice was very kind to her and used to come round and help her to bake, which was very difficult in the wartime with the rationing and so on. So.
However, the lack of material things is the least of their worries. The children's emotional problems are much worse. Alice still remembered one case decades later.
Es war ein scheues Kind, und solange die Kleine von ihren Eltern gehört hat, war sie all right. Und dann haben die Eltern geschrieben, sie müssen eine Reise machen, das war immer der letzte Brief. Und nie wieder. Und da ist sie die Bettnässerin geworden. Unser Garten war nie unnachgelaufen.
Alice says there was the linen outside in this beautiful garden hanging on the washing line, and she called it the hostel flag. That was our hostel flag, always washing on the line.
It wasn't easy, and it all done by hand. Imagine what it was like.
Yeah. Apparently they all had to wash the linen together.
All the girls had jobs, didn't they?
Yeah, they all had jobs.
But there are also nice moments in the children's home. Alice and Paula are film fans. They let the children go to the local cinema as often as they want. One of Alice's girls lives in Israel today. She's 92-year-old Alissa Tenenbaum. I have a Zoom conversation with her from the old cinema in Windermere. Alissa went here often.
Good morning. Hello, Alissa. Hello, good to see you.
It's nice to see you.
Oh, you look wonderful. And I wanted to know more about your time here.
I came on the 24th of August with the last Kindertransport from Vienna, 8 days before my 10th birthday.
And you celebrated your 10th birthday in the hostel?
Yes, I was a week in the hostel, and in the morning all the sirens went off. It was a Sunday, I was still in bed, and we all got up, and I said, music for my birthday. And the girls said, are you stupid? That's not music, that's a siren. We never had heard a siren in Vienna.
So what was it like? I mean, how was Alice? Alice and Paula Sieber were running this hostel, so what were they like?
Oh, Mrs. Urbach was 100% organized. She was the stricter person. Mrs. Urbach was softer. I'm ever grateful for their education, for their taking care of us, for them, these two ladies, teaching us to be personalities, to be people, to think of others.
And could you tell me more about the kitchen? I mean, did you work in the kitchen? Did you learn cooking?
Each one of us had their duty in the kitchen. And each one of us had their duty on Friday, on Thursday, to help make the cakes. Every Thursday, yeast cake was made. Till today, every Thursday, I make yeast cake.
Alice's mother is stuck in Vienna, but her father manages to escape the Nazis. He joins the British Army and regularly visits his daughter in the children's home. Another girl's father has also managed to escape. Alice teaches him to cook so that he can find a job nearby. The girls are starting apprenticeships. Alissa wants to become a dressmaker. When she cycles home in May '45, everybody is waiting for her.
I came home and all the girls were standing there. You have a telegram, you have a telegram. The two ladies were sitting with the telegram, with a cup of water, with a tranquilizer. The telegram was from the Red Cross in Sweden, addressed to my dad, to the army. I'll read it to you. Your wife saved. Arrived here, Red Cross transport from Germany. Her health good. Red Cross Sweden. I was the only one.
It is the only positive telegram that arrives at the children's home. Alice realizes she has not been running a children's home, but an orphanage. And she now has to explain to the children what has happened to their parents. Alice also receives tragic news. Her 3 sisters have been murdered. Helene in the Lodz ghetto. Her older sisters Caroline and Sidonie were gassed by the Nazis in Treblinka. In her memoirs, Alice mentions this in only one sentence. She writes that the two clung to each other in death. Of course, she has no proof of this embrace, but it helps her a little. Alice had always allowed the girls to go to the cinema, but now films about the liberation of the concentration camps are shown there. She expressly forbids the children to watch these films. One of the girls sneaks into the cinema anyway. She faints right after the film starts. The local policeman takes her back to the children's home in his car. It is not only concentration camp films that reach Windermere. Children arrive who were liberated from concentration camps. The boys are placed in a separate children's home.
After the war, boys from concentration camps came to Windermere and a hostel was opened up for them. And the ladies, Mrs. Urbach and Mrs. Sieber, told us not to get in touch with them. You don't know who they are, what they went through. Don't talk with them. But standing in queue, waiting for the ticket, they spoke English. We spoke English. It didn't take long. Each one of us had a boyfriend.
The home is closed in 1946. The girls find work, some are taken in by distant relatives. Alice moves to the US to her son Karl. But she's homesick. She often quotes a poem by her brother Felix.
O Wiener Winter, schneebedeckte Straßen, vom blauen Himmel warm die Sonne schien. Der ist kein Wiener, der ist nie gewesen, der mich vergessen kann, geliebt ist mir.
In 1949, Alice visits her hometown, 11 years after immigrating. She goes to her old synagogue in Seitenstädtengasse.
Und wie ich mich erinnert habe an alle die Hochzeiten und Bar Mitzvahs, die wir in der Seitenstädtengasse mitgemacht haben, mit den Leuten, mit der Familie, die alle durch Hitler zugrunde gegangen sind, habe ich so zu weinen angefangen, als ich hinausgehen musste aus dem Tempel. Ich konnte nicht lang bleiben. Es hat mir das Herz gebrochen.
To pull herself together, she continues walking through the streets. Vienna is a great post-war city. Alice walks past half-empty shops. In one shop window, she discovers her book with the author's name Rudolf Rösch. She does not understand how this is possible. Why is her old publisher still publishing her book under the name Rösch? 4 years after the war, nothing seems to have changed. I find Alice's first cookbook in a second-hand bookshop. She published it in 1925 with her sister Sidonie in the Jewish publishing house Morris Perlis. The famous Perlis family had a similar experience after the war. Like Alice, they found out in the 1950s that nothing had changed in Austria. The historian Murray Hall fought for the Perlis family for years. I meet him at the Viennese Holocaust Memorial.
One of the books Alice published with Morris Perlis in 1925,
right. Yes.
that was her
That's right, yeah.
first cookbook with them. So they were a very established Jewish publishing house.
That's correct, yes.
And what happened to them in 38? Because, I mean, Alice, of course, lost all her rights, so they had the same problem?
In March 1938, that was the month of the annexation,
yes.
The Perlis family was forced to relinquish or give up one of the most important publications in the German-speaking world. That was the Wiener Medizinische Wochenschrift. This is the first issue which appeared after it was taken over by the printing company.
Good God, that's the Nazified version, the Aryanized version.
That's right. The publishing house itself was Aryanized in 1939, and then it was erased from the commercial register, which means the company did not exist after 1942 itself. And then after the war, in 1949, Paul Perlis and members of the family went to court, restitution court, seeking the property of their father. And almost year for year, the court said, no, you get nothing, no, you get nothing. Then they appealed again, the Perlis family, and then it was the same thing, a negative answer.
It cannot be assumed that Alice knew about the Perlis case, but she already had lost faith in the judicial system in 1938. She also suspected that most of the judges and prosecutors in Germany and Austria were the same as in the Nazi era. Why should these people help a Jewish author?
In a way, it's like my Alice case, because the publishing house still exists, and they told me they have no archive material, it's all gone in the war, and unfortunately they can't help me. So I'm a bit lost now. I mean, how can I get access to sources? What shall I do, in your opinion? I mean, you've been through it yourself.
Yes. The problem is if a publishing company or a company refuses to give you access to any material, it's up to them.
It's their private archive.
It's a private archive, and the only solution would seem to be name and shame. You know.
Name and shame. Okay, I'll try that one.
My research is over, and I realize I have to write a book about Alice, because I now understand what was done to her. As a woman, as a refugee, and as an author. The publisher Hermann Jung had to replace Alice as author in 1938 in order to continue earning money from her book. That was a commercial decision, and it was legal at the time. But Hermann Jung's real guilt began after the war, when he did not give Alice back her authorship. My book about Alice is translated into 5 languages. In the conclusion, I make an appeal to the Ernst Reinhardt Publishing House. They should make Alice, after more than 80 years, the author of her own work again. That's my only demand. No money, no compensation, just the return of authorship. I speak to more than 40 journalists in Germany, Britain and the US. The Times, Der Spiegel, Die Zeit, Taz, SZ, FAZ and Austrian television carry Alice's story. In the end, it is an interview with Spiegel Online that brings the breakthrough. The new managing director of Ernst Reinhardt Verlag contacts me. And what is even better, the publishing house suddenly finds its archive. Also, Rudolf Rösch published 3 of Alice's books under his name until 1966. There are supposedly no documents about him. But at least other material from the publisher's archives turns up. 18 letters Alice wrote to publisher Hermann Jung in the 1950s.
It's amazing. I mean, they found their archive all of a sudden. You remember, we were wondering, they said they didn't have the archive. Well, apparently they do. They do have an archive. Now all this jigsaw we can piece together now because Alice wrote to the publisher in the 1950s. So she wrote him 18 letters asking for her book back.
I'm hearing from everyone in Vienna that my cookbook, or should I say what used to be my cookbook, is on sale in all the bookshops again under Rösch's name. I find it very hurtful. Can't you do anything to restore my name? After all, it is my work.
She made many trips to Austria when I was a child. I remember her going. She never talked about this to me, but I wonder what happened.
Alice took trips to Europe more than once in the years after the war and tried to meet her publisher, without success. In his 1974 commemorative publication, Jung claims to have met her, but Alice's letters show this meeting never took place.
In 1953, she again writes to him, and she is in Vienna, and she says, "The Aryan edition of the book is in the window of every bookshop."
You can imagine that it breaks my heart, especially when every bookseller says, this is the most popular cookbook. People hardly ever ask for anything else.
This letter from 1953 was her last. In the US, she works as a nutritionist in Chicago, New York, and San Francisco.
When immigrants here in America hear my name, it still happens sometimes that they say, "Oh, Mrs. Urbach, I've never seen you before, but when I emigrated to America, I brought your book over with me. I treasure your recipes."
It's amazing to me that she was not bitter. She must have been the kind of person that didn't look back, but just wanted to move forward. Remember when she started teaching again when she was 90, where she was cooking for disabled people? And then she walked into a cooking school near her apartment and marched up to the owner and said, "You need to have a class on Viennese cooking, and I'm the one to teach it." And she was 90 years old, and she charmed this woman, and she hired her.
In her old age, Alice did receive some recognition. At the age of 95, she appeared in 2 episodes of the popular program Over Easy on PBS. Her host was the Broadway star Mary Martin.
You are going to teach me how to make an omelet with fruit?
Well, that's very easy, really. But I didn't know what to do else, what you can make in 6 minutes. Well, I'm a cooking teacher more than 60 years of age, so I don't make any secret of my recipes. I wrote a big cookbook, but it's German, and you couldn't read it. I wanted it translated, but it's very difficult to find somebody who is perfect in German, perfect in English, and perfect in cooking.
You're perfect!
And then, so many decades after her death, there's somewhat of a happy end after all. Ernst Reinhardt Publishing House apologizes for its behavior. The company gives Alice's author rights to my cousin Katrina and me and prints a symbolic new edition of 100 books. They are not for sale, but Alice's name is now on a book cover again. And who knows, Katrina and I might republish the book again one day. Okay, we won! Hey, we won! We got a new edition. Alice is the author of her own book again after over 80 years.
That's just wonderful.
I'll send you lots of copies. So this is for you, my darling. And they were very apologetic. They said they were very sorry, and it was morally inexcusable. And yeah, so they wanted to publish the book again and give her authorship back. And yeah.
Thank you for all your work and research. Our granny would be so proud of you.
And I want to thank you for starting me on this journey and supporting me so much and being just wonderful. So big hug and yeah, see you soon, I hope. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Alice Urbach died in California in 1983 at the age of 97. She bequeathed her body to a medical school. The large family grave in Vienna's Döbling cemetery, which her father had bought for all his children, remained empty. They died in extermination camps and in foreign countries.